Yeah. Okay, so welcome to another episode of the Manchester SEO podcast. This episode, we have been joined by recruitment, a recruitment legend in the north.
Oof. Can I write that down, please?
Yeah. Sharon, Seville.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. I tried to get you on an earlier one, but you ignored me. But
I'm a very busy lady. What
that.
can I say? I can squeeze you into the diary this time, James.
But I'm really happy you come in and talk to us about you and recruitment and what you do. Those people who don't know you, tell us a bit more about
me. Crikey. Where do I start? Crikey. I've got many hats, I think is probably the safe thing to say. So, yes, I am a recruiter and I've been in recruitment for 30 years now. 30 years this year, actually.
Wow.
And I've had my own business for the last 15 years. But I also do a lot of other things as well. Now, you know that I love recruitment and you know that I love manufacturing recruitment. So I recruit at leadership level for the manufacturing industry and the engineering industry. And,
Sure.
I genuinely do love that. And I've got a big passion for manufacturing. But I'm also a non-executive director for the Recruitment and Employment Confederation, which is our industry's governing body. I am chair of the Climate Action Business Forum for Stockport Council.
Right.
I'm on the Trafford and Stockport College Group Engineering Employer Advisory Board.
Yeah.
And I've just relinquished my presidency for the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce president position for Stockport.
Wow.
So, and that's just because I don't have time to fit everything in. You know, there's a limit, and when you've got your own business and you're running your own business, something has to give when you're doing that much.
Yeah.
So I've trying to hand over the reins to somebody else, and I'm in situ until they get somebody else. Hopefully that'll be sooner rather than later, because I relinquished my position about 6 or 7 months ago.
Right. Okay. You're still doing it.
I'm still doing it. Yeah.
Amazing. So just a few things there. Sounds like you're at the forefront of the employment industry, really.
Do you know what? When I took the non-exec position for the Recruitment and Employment Confederation, I did it because you've worked in recruitment, so you know, and I think the reputation of recruiters isn't necessarily the best. And I do think that's more of an internal thing than an external thing, because when you've got a good recruiter on your side, I think they make a massive difference to a business.
Yeah.
But working out a good recruiter from a not so good one is the real challenge that any employer faces, because how do you work out who's going to do the best for your business? And joining the board at the REC allowed me to almost play a part in changing the perception of the recruitment industry, improving its reputation, being involved at real kind of granular level in terms of what you can do and how you can do it and how you can make the best of the service offerings that you've got. And being able to influence the industry, I think for me is actually really important. I want to be able to make a difference. I want to be able to professionalise the industry. And I know that sounds really, oh, do you? But I do. I think it's a really important industry. And when you look at it, well, it's something like a £43 billion a year industry, the recruitment industry, with a second largest employer behind the NHS. This is not an industry that is built on poor service and bad perception. There is poor service and there is bad perception, but generally, as a rule, it's an industry that is absolutely vital to the UK economy. And I want to be able to have people see that a little bit more than maybe they do at the moment. So professionalising the standards for me is, you know, it's important. I want to be able to support that and make a difference.
Getting the right people into your business is really vital for the success of the business.
Absolutely, yeah, and everything else that goes with it. I talk a lot, and I know this flies in the face of recruitment, but I talk a lot about retention and how companies need to be supporting the retention of their existing staff, because that's a far more cost-effective route than using someone like me to go out there and find somebody for them. And I think companies, you know, the last few years, pre-pandemic, and the last 10 years before that, companies have been in the driving seat of who they want to employ. And they'll have a tick list of 10 things that they want. And, you know, if this person only has 9, they'll say, no, next. And that's been like that for an awful long time. But now the boot is completely on the other foot. We've got skills shortages and labour shortages, and they are not the same thing. They just are not. So companies have to be a little bit more wily about keeping the people that they've got, and they have to be a little bit more savvy about the people that they want to bring in. And for me, working with a recruiter, not on a transactional basis where, you know, it's like, get me a CV, okay, here's a CV, get me a person, okay, here's a person. It's not like that anymore, recruitment. Recruitment is very much relationship. It's very much consultative. It's very much, we're in it together. Let's work out what we need to do to get you where you want to be. And I do think that is starting to change, but companies are still, you know, they're lagging behind really. They're not really seeing that they're not in the driving seat anymore. So they've got to look at a candidate or an individual in a different way to what they did maybe a decade ago, even less really.
For me, I have a good idea what a good recruiter is. But if you're an accountant or you're more technical or you're project based and you've never been involved in that, how do you know what a good recruiter is?
And isn't that the challenge? Isn't that when you get, you know, 100 calls a day as an employer from recruiters, how do you work out who the good ones are? Who are the ones that are really going to help you? Who are the ones that are in it because they want to make sure that the company gets the right person and the person gets the right company? How do you work that? It's really hard. And the only advice that I can give on that front really is taking the call in the first place is tricky because people don't have time. But when you do take the call, it's if you listen to somebody and they sound like they know what they're talking about, they sound as though they've got a bit of knowledge in terms of you and your industry and your sector and everything else, you're almost halfway there. If they sound robotic, they sound like they're reading from the script, they don't really understand what you're talking about, they're the people that you probably as well to do the, well, thanks, but we're not recruiting at the moment spiel, which is that autopilot, let's put this one on record button. But the ones that sound as though they've got a bit of knowledge behind them, they're the ones that ultimately are really going to support your business in the most effective way. They're the ones that are going to do you justice, and they're the ones that are going to go out there and champion you. You know, they're going to be able to say that Sharon from First Commercial Recruitment is brilliant. Go and speak to her. Go and see if she can help you. She really helped me. And I think the other thing for me, you know, I'm all over LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is my main platform. I don't do anything else without doing it on LinkedIn because that's where my audience is. And I post, as you know, a lot of videos. And I think I looked at my first one a couple of months ago and I was like, oh my God, that's hideous. But I think the more you do it, the more natural it feels. And you just, you know, you're having a conversation into the camera really, aren't you? But what you're trying to do is get that message out. But companies have got access to LinkedIn. You know, they can go and Google or do a search on LinkedIn for a consultant that they're thinking, oh, this one sounds a bit okay. And they'll see. And the thing is you can't be fake on LinkedIn for as long as I've been on LinkedIn and then not be able to deliver. You can't be in recruitment for 30 years and not be good at what you do. So you'll see the social media on LinkedIn, you'll see the messages that I get out, you'll see hopefully how passionate I am about manufacturing and recruitment and the importance that it plays in the UK economy. You'll understand that I'm quite a down-to-earth person. I'm not somebody that is pretentious in any way, shape or form. You know, for me, if I can provide you with a good service, if I can give you a really good outcome, you're going to tell everybody how good I am. The candidate is going to tell everybody that I've done a really good job and I'm not treating them like a number. Everybody's going to be happy and I'm going to make money. I mean, recruitment is the best job on the planet, isn't it? Because you're changing people's lives for the better and you're making money doing it. And it's not a dirty word to say making money. We all need to make money. But I think where it goes a little bit awry is when the ethics aren't necessarily, you know, your moral compass doesn't point in the right direction. And again, that's a challenge. But I think people are sensible. I think people, for the most part, can work out the good, the bad and the ugly. And all they have to do is do a bit of research and they'll see for themselves.
So, taking it
I'll stop talking now.
No. I mean, there's so much to pick out on that. when you ask, I still know a lot of recruiters, and some really good friends, and we've all got slightly different stories about how we got into recruitment. How did you get into it?
No, nobody ever. It's not a profession, isn't it? Nobody goes to school and goes, "I want to be a recruiter."
No, that's
They
it.
just don't do it. Which is something I'd like to change, to be honest with you, because it is. Do you know what? It's a really honourable profession, and it sounds really cheesy saying that, but I think it is. But how I got into it is probably the same way you got into it. You know, I had got a couple of years working in IT sales, and I was made redundant from a company. And do you know what? I went round to recruitment agencies. It was so arrogant because, well, I wasn't. I started off saying, "Oh, can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me?" And I didn't have a wonderful experience with recruiters, if I'm being really honest.
No.
And everybody was trying to shoehorn me because I did telesales. And it was IT sales, you know, it's quite high end. I was dealing with, at the time, ES9000s and AS400 mainframes, or mid-range. And they're ancient now. They'll be in a museum somewhere.
Still used by a lot of insurance companies, actually.
Really?
We'll talk about that afterwards.
Oh, I could do that. But I did, and I really enjoyed it because it was tech. I like tech, and I like people, and I like food. So I always thought those are the three industries. When I leave education, it's going to be one of those three that I'm going to go into, because they will never go out of fashion, will they?
No.
And I went into loads of recruitment agencies, and they all tried to shoehorn me, this is where it goes wrong, into advertising sales.
Right.
I was like, I don't want to do advertising sales. It doesn't float my boat. It doesn't excite me. It's not my motivator. I won't be successful because it's not something that I want to do. Every single one of them. And I think I went into about 10 different recruitment agencies, all big names. You know, these aren't small little boutique agencies. And I went into one, and you get to the point when you go in, and I always say this when I'm talking to candidates, I always say, treat every single visit to a recruitment business as if it's your first, even if you're fed up to the back teeth of us recruiters. Because I went into one, and I went in and said, right, I don't want advertising set. I don't want this. I don't want that. Because I was fed up. They were all trying to shoot, and I don't want this. And he was brilliant. And he went, okay, let's come and take a seat. And he took me in the back, and he said, respectfully, Sharon, I said, why would I want to try and find you a job when my perception of you is that you're cocky, you're telling me all the things that you want, your personality isn't coming through, you're being a bit arrogant, you're dictating to me. He said, I built relationships with my clients over years, so why would I put you in front of them and jeopardise that? And it hit me like a brick. And I was like, oh my God. He said, and that isn't me, you know, I'm not that kind of person. I was fed up. I just wasn't that kind of person. And he was amazing. I mean, he was amazing. He did make me cry, so maybe not quite amazing. I don't think you should ever do that. But he did make me understand and make me realise, and he did go through the registration process with me. Hats off to him. Now, he didn't find me a job, so what, you know, I don't really understand why he was doing it, but I get where he was coming from with what he was saying. The next agency I went into, everything he said, I did exactly what I should have done, which is represented myself in the right way, represented what I was looking for and how I was hoping that somebody could help me, and then deliver from there. And they put me in front of one client, which the interview went really well. But when I went into another recruitment agency after that, the MD said to me, have you ever thought about recruitment, Sharon? I said, no, I haven't actually. She went, you'd be really good at it. She said, come and have an interview with me. And the rest, as they say, is history. That was in 1994. 1994. Holy smokes. Long time.
Well, it's an interesting story, that, because you have a guy there who's treating it more like a coach. So he's
brilliant.
Coaching you on how to. And when I was in recruitment those years ago, it was you wanted to make sure you could get there. They were dressed appropriately. They'd say the right things, and so you're constantly coaching them and to give them the best possible opportunity to get the role.
You're getting them out of their own way sometimes, aren't you? And you're giving them the information, because it's a really intense experience, an interview. And even people that are recruiters, when they're being interviewed, when you're on the other side, you're the same as everybody else. You're nervous, you're worried, you're thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to answer the questions in the right way? Am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to make a fool of myself? Are they going to hate me? That is just a really, really natural reaction to anyone that's going for an interview. So you're right, you do have to coach and support and encourage and get them to think about, well, you know, these are the skills that you've got and these are the skills that somebody needs. How would you explain that? How would you put that across? And if they are, you know, you can't ever tell somebody what to say because they'll never say it anyway. But you do want to make them think about their background and how it lends itself to the job that they're going for an interview for.
Yeah.
And that's our job, isn't it? Is to encourage those conversations, to make them think, so that when they're sat in the chair having an interview, they are putting their best foot forward. And I think that's what a good recruiter should do. They should always have the individual looking for the job. They should always have them front and centre, because you know as well as me, in recruitment you've got two sets of customers. You've got the one that pays you and the one that doesn't. And it's symbiotic. One cannot function without the other. You can't have a recruitment business without individuals looking for work, and you can't have a recruitment business without companies looking for individuals. So it's a symbiotic relationship, but one of them pays you and one of them doesn't. But if you don't look after them both equally, you will not be successful.
Also, it goes with the someone who's looking to fill a position, because, like you say, they may be looking for the perfect person in terms of skills and experience, but actually, perfect person might be making the step up and not have that experience. But they've got the skills to transfer into that, and getting the employer to understand that, but also to get that person to put that across in their interview. You know, I haven't done this, but I believe I can because of this.
The coaching side, And isn't it our job as well as recruiters to, you know, we all sell. It is not something that is exclusive to a recruiter or exclusive to a field salesperson. We all sell. You know, a kid will sell the fact that, let me stay out until 9 o'clock, Mum, and I'll do the dishes for a week. We all sell. It's the most natural thing that us humans do. But what we have to do as recruiters is we have to sometimes be able to speak to the end employer and say, look, I know that this isn't your absolute ideal, but knowing you, knowing your company, knowing your team, knowing your culture, knowing the expectation, knowing what the job is, and then knowing this person and their capabilities and their skills and their competencies and their character and their person, I think there's a really nice match here. And it is somebody that I really, really would like you to see, and you're going to have to trust me. That's the really hard part of recruitment, because why should they trust you and why would they trust you? Because it's their time. But if you've got a real strong consultative relationship with your end employer, then they should be able to trust you. They should be able to trust you enough to go, okay, Sharon, I'm trusting your judgment here. Because the thing that I think a lot of employers forget, possibly, and maybe candidates as well, is they forget that I can't force an employer to employ somebody.
No.
And I can't force a candidate to take a job that they don't want. My job is to put the two together and hope that it works using the knowledge that I've got of each individual party. The rest is up to them. So I'm not going to put somebody in front of an end employer that I think can't do the job, because my end employer is going to think, what an idiot, she don't have a clue, and I'm never going to get business from them again. But my retention rate is, or my repeat business rate, is 86%, and it's been at around 86% for a decade, maybe more. So I know my customers come back to me, and I know they come back to me because I'm competent and I'm good at what I do. They wouldn't come back if I couldn't do my job, and I'm not supported them. By the same token, I've got this fluctuates a little bit more, because once somebody's employed, once you've introduced, because that's the job of a recruiter, isn't it? Is to introduce one party to the other. The rest of it is down to them. I am very mindful, though, that the end of my journey is the start of their journey. You know, I'm very mindful of that. And so we put quality calls in play for candidate and client for, a 6-month period, sometimes a 12-month period, because I want them to be successful. But I'm very mindful of the fact that what we want to do here is make sure that we've got a candidate that is going to stay. So my probationary period, my retention after probationary period is around the 94-96%. And that should tell an end employer that I'm not shoehorning somebody into a job. I'm not saying, oh, you've got the skills to do it, go on. I'm not doing any of that, because they wouldn't stay, they wouldn't get past their probationary period.
No.
And I think these are, the good, important figures. I'm not a fan of CVs. I don't think they're worth the paper they're written on half the time. I want to see the whites of your eyes. I want to understand you, not the piece of paper that represents you. Because it's my job as a recruiter to let the end employer know that you're the person that I think is right for this job. A piece of paper shouldn't do that. They're not paying a piece of paper, they're paying me. So that's my job. So, and it's brave to do this, but it's very rare that I will put a CV to an end employer before I've got them an interview, before I've got a candidate an interview. So for me, when I first go and visit a company, because I will always go out, I've visited in Aberdeen, I've visited in Devon. I will go all across the country because I want to see the work environment, I want to see the people, I want to see the faces, I want to sit and have this conversation with the end employer and work out, well, what are the nuances? What are the things that aren't written down on a job description that I need to know? I want the warts and all. I want the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between.
Yeah.
I want to know what the good sides of the job are, what the downsides are, why they think that a candidate should come and work for them as opposed to their competitors. Because that's what I will sell. That's what I will explain to a candidate. So I'll go up and down the country, and I'll do that for the candidate. I can see you've got 20 questions coming, but I'll do it for the end employer, but I'll do it for the candidate as well. I want to make sure that there's a really nice marry up between these two parties, because I want the business in 10 years' time. I want the business in 20 years' time. I want them to tell people that First Commercial Recruitment are brilliant. I want them to say, go and see them, they're not going to let you down. Go and see them, I've used them for years. I've got one client who will never ever, hates agencies, which really frustrates me. And every time I speak to him, I'm like, Adrian, they're not all bad. There's a lot more good than bad. Don't go anywhere else, just stay with me.
Yeah.
But there are some really, really good recruiters out there. But he won't touch anybody else. He will only ever come to me for his recruitment. And actually, he's just told his best friend, who is looking for a new job, go and speak to Sharon. And that, for me, that is brilliant. But there are challenges. You've got to have these initial conversations first of all, haven't you? So people can see that you're not a charlatan and you are, morally sound when it comes to finding the right person for the right job.
Probably going to see them makes you different as well, because if you're I was in a fairly big agency. I think I visited one client in that time. It was all done over the phone.
Wow, and I'm really surprised by that. I did some figures a couple of months ago for I was having a conversation with somebody, and I just thought, oh, let me work out. And I actually worked out over my 30-year career, I worked out that I have visited well over 2,000 businesses.
Wow.
And I've just changed my LinkedIn profile, actually, because 2,000 businesses, I don't think there's very many people in the world of recruitment that have visited that many, and predominantly manufacturing and engineering businesses.
In the world of business in general.
Oh, it just... So, and somebody said to me a few months back, are you an expert? And I was like, no, because I'm always learning. I'm always, I'll never say that I'm an expert, because there's always more to learn. There's always more to do. But they said something to me, and I can't remember what it was, if I'm being really honest. I was like, oh, actually, I might actually be an expert. So yeah, and it's a bit kind of cringeworthy, isn't it, saying I'm an expert? But I do, when I look back and I think about, I've seen the challenges. I know what manufacturing businesses challenges they've faced. They've faced Brexit, they've faced COVID, raw materials, supply chain, energy, skills. It just goes on. And I've seen SME businesses, large corporate businesses, micro businesses, and everything in between. I've seen, heard, listened, observed all those challenges that they've got around them. So I think I'm well placed to understand the general kind of consensus of what happens in the world of engineering and manufacturing. And I think that puts me in a pretty unique position.
I do too. I think to empathise with where a business is at, to understand why they're recruiting, why they're trying to expand, what that means for them. And does that mean someone's recruiting at this point in the economic world? That means they're doing very well compared to another one that might not be. And, so it helps you, I say sell, it helps you advise the candidate, the employer as to what's good, how does this affect you long term?
Yeah, I know. And it's all those things. Is recruitment can be really insular, can't it? And you can just have it as come in, get the job done, go away. But the impact of what you do for an end employer is massive. The impact what you do for an individual is massive, or can be massive. I won't say is massive, it can be massive. So you've got to make sure that you're understanding, well, what's the long-term aim? What's gone before? How is this person going to make a difference to what you're looking to achieve? What are the intricacies and the nuances that are needed to make sure that I'm getting the right sort of person in for you? What are the ideals? You mentioned the word perfect earlier on, and do you know what? I never, ever use the word perfect in recruitment. And it's bandied around everywhere. But your perfect, James, is different to my perfect. So how can I have that word perfect and say, so you need a perfect candidate? Well, my perception of that might be different to yours. There are ideals, and that's the word I use instead of... And I know it's a really silly thing, but I'm just like, perfect has a connotation and an expectation of this. But when we're coming to people, because we're a funny old bunch, aren't we, us people, there will always be something that isn't quite right, isn't quite where we need it to be. So you have to decide whether you're prepared to make allowances for that or not, and then work out, will that still fit into what I'm looking for on a long-term basis, whether you're an individual or an end employer. And when you use the word perfect, it makes it harder to do that. So it's, well, what are your ideals? What are the things that are non-negotiable? What is the most important thing? What's the bits that are really going to make somebody stand out? I ask my clients, what do you look for on a CV? And when I first started saying that, the clients would, because they're cynical, because the world seems to be cynical, the recruitment world, but they're just speaking to the wrong people, aren't they? And they said, I'm not going to tell you that because you'll just go and put it on someone's CV. I was like, no, I'm saying it because if that's what you look for, that's what I'll look for. So now I always say, look, tell me what you look for in a CV, because, and I explain. And I think that is another big thing that recruitment misses out on. It's that explanation to an end employer. We use our words and our terminology and our jargon, just like in the magic world of SEO. You use your own terminology and your own jargon, and you understand it because that's the world that you live in. But when you talk to me, like when you've talked to me in the past about SEO, I'm like, it makes no sense to me whatsoever. So you have to educate, don't you? You have to educate almost your audience and explain to them why you do the things you do. Not use our internal words, our recruitment world words, but use the industry world words, because then it sinks in, that people start to understand what you're going to do for them and how you're going to do it. I know I've got a strong moral compass. I know if I can't fill a role, I ain't going to take it, because that doesn't help me, it doesn't help the end employer, it doesn't help a person. I've got to know that I've got the skill and capability and knowledge to fill a position that somebody's given me. Otherwise, I will recommend them to another recruiter that might be specialist in that field. I think it's really important that, and I think a lot of people will just say, I can do it. But I don't. Everything I do is deposit-led. I will not take a role unless I get a deposit, and my deposit is really low. It's a few £100. It is nothing of any significant value. But I tell you what's happened since I've gone deposit-led in my business.
Buying from...
Absolutely. Totally. 100% you get the buy-in, because they're putting skin in the game as well. Now, when you think about it, we've always had this transactional recruitment industry, haven't we? And it's like, well, here's the job. You'll give it out to 5 different agencies, and whoever comes back first. That is the worst kind of recruitment. And I think that's probably why end employers think that recruitment agencies are just charlatans. Because if you were fighting against 5 other competitors for the same piece of work, and it's very much a first past the post CV, I'm not going to get a chance to interview them. I'm not going to get a chance to understand what the motivators and drivers are. I'm not going to be able to understand what makes them really tick and get to understand their character and personality. Do you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to rely on that horrible piece of paper that we call a CV and go, oh, yeah, oh, there's a few buzzwords. Let's get them over. Because if I don't and somebody beats me to it, then I'm not going to get a fee for what I've done, because everything I'm doing for that end employer is free. So post-COVID, I had no choice, because obviously the world fell apart. So I literally had to change our model, and we went deposit-led. Since being deposit-led, I have not failed to fill one single, well, that is a fib. I've not filled one vacancy. Every other vacancy that we've had since the pandemic, since becoming deposit-led, every single one of them we've filled. And that is because I have to put skin in the game. I can't take a deposit off somebody and not fill that role, because my reputation goes out the window. I can't not deliver, and I can't stop until I've found what they're looking for. So that deposit makes me work harder. It means I've got less roles that I'm having to work on in order to make sure that I'm hitting my break-even point so that the business is viable. I've just got more time to spend with those companies that are looking to hire people, and I've got more time to interview and assess somebody's suitability for a role. And that, I'm going back to what I said earlier on about transactional recruitment v consultative recruitment. That is consultative recruitment at its best, because you're giving me some skin in the game and I'm giving you some skin in the game. We've both got something to lose. Now, that deposit, the fee, that deposit is taken off the end of the final fee. So I'm not taking more money off somebody. I'm taking exactly the same money, but I'm spending longer on a vacancy. I'm dealing with less vacancies. I'm getting more buy-in, and I've not failed. Well, we'll not talk about that one. It's a very difficult one for me now to say that I'm not 100% anymore.
Well, it's interesting what you say. My frustration with recruitment was that, like you say, the CV and interviewing. So the more interested in how well someone interviewed rather than how good they could do the job.
Yeah.
And that made no sense to me at all. Well, they were nervous.
No.
I remember I was actually looking for a job when I was about 30.
Right.
And they said, I called them up because someone had said, oh, you should speak to these guys. I told them about you. And they asked for my GCSE results, which I had, but they wanted proof of them. And I was 30, I had a degree in 3 A-levels. And I was like, I haven't actually seen them for about 10 years, these bits of paper that are around.
Yeah.
But you won't interview me until you've got them. What about what I've done since? I'm a completely different person as well. And then it was like, well, they answered this wrong and they didn't do that. I'm like, no wonder people are stressed going for interviews where you're not really finding out about them and can they do the role. You're just interested in, are they good at interview? You
cookie cutter questions are just, they're not fit for purpose anymore. No. You can't, as an employer, you cannot interview in the way you interviewed when you was 30. You cannot do it. It's a different world. And I think whenever I'm talking to my end employers and I say, like, okay, we've got this interview and, this is a person, this is a background, and give them a bit of verbal inside information. I will give them a CV, because a CV is the interview tool as far as I'm concerned. It helps them. I give my consultant comments. I tell them what they've considered their key skills to be. I even hate the strengths and weaknesses question. It's just a ridiculous question, because you can prepare so easy for it. So I ask the question when I'm going through my internal interview process with a candidate, and then I put it on the CV so that the end employer doesn't ask it. They don't need to at that point, because it's an irrelevant question. It's just one of those really old-fashioned questions that is so ingrained in British interview psyche that people ask it. But you can't interview in the same way anymore when you've got such shortages. In terms of shortages, even right here, right now, the economically inactive rate in the UK is 22.2%. Now, if you don't know what economically inactive is, it's those people of working age, so between 16 and 64, that aren't working. The unemployment rate in the UK is 1 or 2% of, I think it's 4.2%. So it's almost 5 times higher economically inactive rate than an unemployment rate in the UK. It's unprecedented. So as an end employer, you cannot be in a position where you're going, oh, no, next. Oh, no, you've not got your GCSE results and you're 54. Come on, next. You can't do it anymore.
No.
You have to be able to think about, okay, we've got this skills crisis and this labour shortage. We need to recruit on attitude and train on skill. And that's a whole different set of interview questions, isn't it? That is not about what did you get, what results did you get when you were 16. It's about what you've done, how you've done it, what you're looking for right now and what you can do moving forward. And if an end employer can have that kind of conversation with somebody and then think about, okay, well, this isn't, our absolute 100% person that we want, but actually I can see something in James. He's got that spark, he's got that work ethic, he's got that attitude and that capability. Do you know what? He's the guy for us. It's that's how people need to recruit in this day and age, and that's not going to change. That won't get any better. Well, we've just got a skills minister, haven't we? So Skills England has been created, so there is hopefully going to be more focus on what government can do for the skills provision and what industry can do for the skills provision. And that the challenge is that I don't think we can rely on government to change our skills system entirely. I think they can help with frameworks, but the way that we skill our nation has got to be done at business level. And the corporates are in a really great position to do that because they've got deeper pockets than the SME and they've got more resource and more capability. So it will start with those larger organisations changing the fundamental face of the recruitment world and thinking about it in a different way to traditionally how it's been thought about. But those SME businesses, they're the lifeblood of the UK economy. They make up the vast majority of UK businesses. So we need to be thinking about, well, how can we support the smaller businesses? What can we do? How can we make it so that they've got the best opportunities that they can have within their particular sector? And that comes down to giving businesses the opportunity to have their own talent pipeline in, having their own training, having their own support systems with a bit of an ecosystem around them, for support. Like the Growth Company is a really good example. I mentioned earlier on about the Trafford and Stockport College Group. They've got a leadership team now that are very, very proactive in going out to the local community. And you know how much I love Stockport. But they're going out to the local community and they're asking employers, what do you want? What do you need? What skills provision is important to you? Because what we're going to try and do is build our curriculum around the local provision. So there's lots of things that are starting to happen, but I don't think that government is going to be the ones that spearhead it. I think industry is going to spearhead it and government should be able to give them support to deliver it. There's a lot that needs to change, but... this is the first step.
It's fascinating. Okay, so away from all that recruitment, if someone was going into recruitment now, what kind of advice would you have for them?
Holy smokes! Do you know what? It's a brilliant profession, James. It genuinely really is. You are changing people's lives for the better. What better job is there than that? In the best possible way, and you're making a few bob doing it. I think the attrition rate in recruitment is massive. It's something like 80% in the first 12 months will not stay in the world of recruitment because they think it's something that it isn't. It is a hard industry to be in, and it's hardcore. Your resilience has got to be, sky high. You've got to be able to deal with the rejection. It's a really, really big industry. Now, there's something like 30 to 40,000 businesses in the recruitment businesses in the UK. So that's a lot of competition. This isn't two businesses that are competing for businesses. This is 30, 40,000 businesses competing all together. So I think you've got to have a moral compass. You've got to be thinking about how can I support the end employer? How can I support the individual that's looking for a job? How can I do it in a way that I'm still going to be able to, hit my parameters that my manager has set for me, and I can build the reputation of the business so that actually people come to us rather than us going to them. I always say in recruitment or in any sales role, I always say you get paid a salary for all the no's that you get on the telephone, and you get paid your bonus for all the yeses.
Right.
And for me, that's a really logical way to look at
It's a good way
sales.
of putting it.
Yeah. But I think recruitment is far, far harder than anybody perceives. Anybody. And until you're in it, you're never going to know, which is why the attrition rate is so high. Now, like I said, I've done it for 30 years, and I am really, really proud of my reputation. And the icing on the cake for me was last November, I got recognised by the Financial Times. Now, bear in mind, I've got 3 staff. Recognised by the Financial Times as one of the UK's leading recruiters for 2024.
Right.
Now, when you think about the fact that there's 30 to 40,000 recruitment businesses out there, you've got some of them massive major players and little old me, and it is all retrospective. It's not, you can't put a fancy campaign together and say, hey, we want to win that award. You don't do any of that. It is literally the Financial Times went out to 10,000 businesses and said, who do you recommend? Who's a good recruiter? Who would you put down on your list? And that puts my business in the top 0.5% of the UK recruitment industry. And I've got 3 staff. That is all reputational. And I think that I'm always in it for the long game. And I think when you go into the recruitment world, that's how you need to be thinking, in answer to your question, is that you've always got to be looking at the long game. I know if I do a good job, my reputation will precede me. And the confirmation of that is the Financial Times Award. That really is the pinnacle. And I feel as though I've reached the pinnacle getting that, because it's Financial Times. It's a massive broadsheet that's renowned across the world. So I'm really, really proud of what we've achieved from that point of view. But make no bones about it, I've worked incredibly hard to get there. And if your work ethic isn't robust, recruitment probably isn't the industry for you.
Right.
In my opinion, in my humble opinion.
One question I usually finish off with is what's success for you? Now, recruitment, it could be money, couldn't it? But so what gives you most fulfillment, I suppose?
I shouldn't say this as a salesperson, but money is a secondary thing. Money will come if I do my job well. Success to me is my repeat business rate. Success to me is when I talk to, and bear in mind, I recruit at management level and leadership level, as well as general recruitment as well. I've got some clients that, if they want an office administrator, I'll recruit for them because I love the client. But you know what? At every level, I get, it makes me a bit sad, this, but pretty much every candidate says to me, wow, thank you so much for your support and your help and your guidance and your encouragement and, for taking the time to listen and understand. And I'm like, well, that's just my job. That's what I do. I mean, I'm glad that I can give them something beyond finding them a job. But that, for me, going back to right at the start of this conversation, that's what recruitment should be about. And that's what I would love recruitment to be about. It's about being able to make a difference in the best possible way and leave an imprint behind that somebody can use moving forward. I mean, what better outcome is there than that?
Those candidates will also in the future be looking for people to employ.
I always say that. I might be recruiting an office administrator, but in 5 years' time, that office administrator could be an office manager or an MD or an operations director. And if I've done a good job, they're going to come back to me and say, hey, you got me a job 5 years ago. I now need some staff. Can you help me? Yes, of course. Absolutely. And that ultimately is what I want, as well as one of those brownies.
Well, we'll get around to one of them. We'll put one in the bag for you.
That's fine. You don't need to put it in the bag. I'll just sit here and munch away in the corner.
Well, that's a fantastic way to finish. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
There's more to hit on there, so we'll get you on again.
Whether
you like it or not.
Oh, Lordy. My diary's very full, Jane. Very full. Thank you.
No worries.
Yay!
Okay.